Star Trek Prodigy, Season 1, Episode 15 review. So, who are these kids, and how are they beating the Tal Shiar? With comedy
It's because of,
tactics.
it's because of Murph.
Yeah.
He knows Murph Fu.
New security officer, so Rock Talk can officially move into the science officer position.
Yep.
And I gotta say, with all those enhancements, he's still stupid. It's like, oh, you think he's the captain?
Well, he got a shot of ego. And it's like suddenly getting muscles. You know, it's like, oh, your intelligence buffed. Okay, yes, but it's like suddenly having big muscles is like, yeah, there are times and a place to show off, and like this was not a time for that. You got drunk on your own thing, and so. But at least we figured out what the hell Dal is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is a literal mutt.
He's a cute mutt.
Yeah, I mean,
he's a cute mutt, but he's a literal mutt. Like, I say I'm a mutt because I'm like Scottish, German, Irish, English, French, Polish, Romanian, German, who else knows what.
They basically take Europe, throw it in a bag, mix it up, and there you go.
Exactly. But Del's even worse because he's like...
Let's start with human, and then we're just going to throw a bunch of crap from all over the quadrant, and then we're going to shake that up, and there you go.
Although, it's sad, the fact that his very existence is illegal.
Ooh, maybe that's why Starfleet wants him. Yeah, we're going to put you down now.
Yeah, which seems so... Actually, they don't put them down. They put them in concentration camps, basically. Like, they put them in little... They put them in penal colonies just for existing.
Well, it also depends on how functional they are in society, because that group was kind of...
Not even. If they catch you...
Yeah, but if you're functional...
being an augment...
Yeah.
If they catch you being an augment, find out you're an augment, you go to a penal colony.
Yeah, but see, the thing was, like, Bashir was also an augment, but they didn't catch him. That's why he
was never caught.
Yeah, so it basically works out to, like, if you're noticeably augmented, then then something comes of it.
Or if somebody finds out that you're augmented.
Yeah, it's mostly that sort of thing. It's like,
which seems really unfair because, like, you can't control how you're born. You can't control how you're made. It's not your fault. You are who you are. And in fact, that's kind of the same argument with disabled people. Like, they did not choose to be, blind or mentally impaired or have Down syndrome or have all these other diseases. It's not their fault. And that's why people are, striving to be less ableist about it, because it isn't their fault they are how they are. They're not harming anybody, so why punish them for existing? And that's why eugenics has such a negative connotation, because it's basically punishing somebody for being, being who they are. So it's reverse eugenics, like, because they have augmentation, he's a good kid. He's never, he doesn't intentionally harm people. He doesn't have like some sort of evil agenda or anything like that. Just because his parents decided to fuck around with science, he has to, he has to pay the price.
Okay. No. Okay, so the actual thing was, uh, uh, they aren't all thrown in there, but they are thrown in there, but they are banned. Because I remember it, I was like, that doesn't sound right for what Deep Space Nine was saying. What it was they had, if you are augmented, you are banned from certain professions and Starfleet. I was reading Memory Alpha to make sure. And you are banned from certain professions and you can't join Starfleet. Bashir was given a special exception given that his father served time for the eugenics, not the laws that he broke. So Bashir was given a special exception to remain in Starfleet.
Then how come? Okay, so
then all those guys that were in Deep Space Nine that were like, you know, that were that think tank.
Yeah.
They were part of an organization known as the Institute. They house and care for augmented humans who have acquired some enhancements or genetic alterations, but also had considerable mental or physical shortcomings as side effects of the procedure.
Okay, but I'm not talking about Deep Space Nine only. One of the characters in one of the newer series is an augment, and she was arrested and sent to a penal colony. Was it because she was working in Starfleet and knowingly was knew she was an augment?
That may be it. That may be it. That she knew she was an augment and was working in Starfleet. Depends on what era. They probably would have been, post Bashir. They may have been more.
It's pre-Kirk era.
Oh, pre-Kirk. Well, the eugenics wars were probably fresh in people's mind, and they probably banned people from joining Starfleet who were augmented, and they would see that, oh, no, we can't reward this sort of behavior. And so they might have gone, okay, well, if you just stayed out of Starfleet or out of these banned professions, we wouldn't have come after you, but you came into Starfleet knowing that you were banned, and you lied on your application. You were augment. You weren't supposed to be here, so you're out. And we're going to put you in a penal colony for doing that, for falsifying your. And maybe they're not actually arrested for being an augment as much as lying on their application and deceiving them about being an augment. That may be what their actual charge is. Like, it may not be you're an augment, you go to a penal colony. No, it's you. If they had just been a shop owner or something, or they worked in a deli, they may not have ever known they were augment, and they weren't in a banned profession, so they wouldn't have done anything. But they lied about what they lied about everything, and that may be what happened. I haven't seen it. I don't know their situation precisely, so I can't say. But
yeah, that's why I didn't.
That's what I'm guessing is
just in case you would end up seeing it.
In what?
I said I didn't go into any specifics, just in case you did want to see it at some point. You would be like completely spoiled at that.
Yeah, which I can guess what series it was, or one of the two. There's only a couple series where that could be.
Yeah.
That I haven't watched yet, so I know kind of which ones it could be, but I don't know. But yeah, you can't be in Starfleet or certain banned professions, but like I don't think they actually my being a DS9 fan, my initial thought went straight to the Bashir and those people that they brought in. I figured out they were the Institute. That's what they went to, because there's probably other augments, but they keep themselves just outside of those banned professions, and then they can do what they want, or they get into those banned professions, but get by.
Don't get caught.
Like Bashir for years. Bashir made it to Starfleet Medical.
didn't even know he was an augment,
Yeah,
I thought.
I
He
don't
didn't
think
know he
he
was
actually
augmented.
knew. Like, yeah, for a while, yeah, he didn't even know he was augmented. Like, but
He didn't know until he met them, I thought.
yeah, I think it comes around the same time or something. But yeah,
Yeah,
he's
because
basically.
he finds out from them or something like that.
But yeah, he didn't have. He didn't. It was done carefully enough that he wasn't detected until later, and so he didn't his
He didn't knowingly break the rule because he didn't know he was an augment.
yeah, and his augments weren't like necessarily superhuman. Like he was
His
prime human.
augment was in order to, I thought, if I remember correctly, his augment was to fix an illness he had as a child or something.
It
It
was, but I
like
think they also did some other things maybe. Like cuz
because
it's
I
not
thought
I
it
don't think
was like
you can have manipulation to cure a disease, to bring you up from
yeah,
no
because
disease state.
I thought his augmentation was as a child he had some sort of incapacitating illness or something like that,
Yeah.
and he was augmented to get rid of that. And you know while they were in there they made him smarter or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's basically let's see. Let me see if I can find it. I've got
It's been
his
a long time since I watched DS9, I'm gonna be honest.
yeah. Um
Like I don't, it's not like I dislike the series, it's just
it's not your
I haven't
favorite.
watched it in a while. No,
Yeah.
it's I haven't watched it in a while.
Yeah.
It's not like Enterprise where it's like, oh God, I have to watch this again. But it's just I haven't. Like I don't
Um
really dislike any of the series. It's just the least tolerable one to me is Enterprise. You know?
Yeah.
okay. I'm reading through his okay.
I like DS9. I thought it was a little heavy with the Dominion War, like a little too focused on like the war and stuff, which I get that's kind of the premise of the show. It's takes place basically in a war zone. It's just not really my thing. That kind of thing. Which is why it's not my favorite series. I prefer Next Gen and like Voyager.
okay. Uh
What?
okay. So I was reading it. Okay, so he was uh at age 6, Bashir was small, not very bright, and a bit physically awkward for his age. In the first grade, while the other children were learning how to read and write and use a computer, Julian was still trying to tell a dog from a cat and a tree from a house. He never really understood what was happening, but he knew that he wasn't doing as well as his classmates. There were several concepts that they took for granted that he couldn't begin to master, but he didn't know why. All he knew was he was a great disappointment to his parents. In 2348, just before Julian's 7th birthday, the Bashir family left Earth for Adigian Prime. At first, he was excited to see all the aliens in the hospital, but then they gave him a room and started a series of treatments. These treatments, known as accelerated critical neural pathway formation, were a method of genetic engineering that involved the resequencing of his DNA. Over the course of 2 months, his genetic structure was manipulated to accelerate the growth of the neuronal networks in his cerebral cortex, and a new Julian Bashir was made. The focus of his enhancements were to increase his mental abilities, and as such, his IQ jumped 5 points a day for over 2 weeks. So at least 70 points, which 100 is a normal IQ. That's average. So going up 70 points he started really low, or they way overshot average.
Yeah. Well, I
He,
don't think he was already pretty low, probably
yeah.
70 to begin with or something, because 70 is
Well, that's how
clinical
much
retard.
it increased.
No, I know, but I'm
Yeah.
saying he probably started at maybe a 70 or 80
Yeah.
because
So
based on that, based on the information you're telling me,
mm,
um, that's usually like a 70 IQ is like mental impairment. Like it is, to use an archaic term, retardation is 70 and below. So he's probably a 75 or something to start with. So he's bumped up to about 140,
yeah, and that was
150.
saying at least 2 weeks, possibly more. They just said for over 2 weeks, so that was the at least 2 weeks. So it was at least 70. So it
So
might have been more.
he's probably at a 150 or something by now.
Yeah, at the end of this, but yeah, he was way above things. And then uh, further treatments led to improve his hand-eye coordination, reflexes, vision, stamina, height, and weight. Genetic augmentation of this kind was illegal in the Federation since the eugenics wars and the creation of the dangerous augment known as Khan Noonien Singh. So the Bashirs kept Julian's enhancement secret. In the end, everything but his name had been altered in some way. But yeah, yeah, I think you if it's just to cure a specific disease, I think that's still okay, but you can't like buff somebody. You can
Mm.
remove restrictions, but you can't. Uh, I double check this. Now, okay, and by the 24th century, UFP allowed limited use of genetic engineering to correct existing genetically related medical conditions. Genetic enhancement or augmentation, however, was forbidden by Federation law. Uh, Persons known to be genetically enhanced were not allowed to serve in Starfleet and were especially banned from practicing medicine, specifically to avoid a recurrent of the eugenics war and the creation of more augments like Khan Noonien Sung. Those found guilty of practicing genetic enhancement could face prison for violating eugenics laws. So, yeah. So yeah, you can by the 23rd century, by the 2300s rather, you could use it in limited amounts to correct a genetic problem. Now, Dal, what it would mean for Dal is that unless they made an exception for him, like they did Bashir, because he was like because he is an augment, and
Yeah.
so like
It just
he
seems so sad that this
yeah
poor kid who, ever since finding out about the about Starfleet, that's what he wants to do. He wants to find a place where he can belong. He wants to join Starfleet. And now, because he's an augment, he can't, just because someone made him.
yeah and like he could still be in the Federation. He could live on some colony or Earth or something, and I don't think there would be any problem because, like I said, there's no you're not I don't think you're instantly locked up for it. Just if you lie about it trying to get into Starfleet or medical, or Starfleet medical especially, that's where the problems come in. And so he's like, they might give him an exception. Who knows? But because, you know, he's a test tube baby, so he has no idea. He doesn't even have parents to arrest. Like you'd have to
Yeah.
find the whoever the the successors to Sung. That's Sung. That's
I'm
how you'd
sorry.
have
I'm
to.
just thinking, damn, Data's got a big family. Because Data was created by his son too.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so all of these, He's technically related to Khan.
But well, was it Sung or Sung? Because those are two different things. Sung and Sung. Because Sung is the android, and Sung is the augment. Con Noonien Sung
See?
is it's pronounced fairly similarly, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's spelled very differently. Because Sung, I think, is Soong, and Sung is Singh. I think something like that. But I think there also was a Sung that was into genetic engineering, and we saw
Yeah.
that on Enterprise because he looked exactly,
Y-
oddly, he
Yeah.
looked exactly like Data.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a Sung that did that.
Yes. I just looked. Noonien Soong, creator of the Soong-type androids like Data, Lauren V4, is a descendant of the 22nd century scientist Dr. Eric Soong, who was the adopted father of a group of augments from the eugenics war. But he was not an augment himself and was not actually related to Noonien Singh.
Yeah.
The reason why I got caught up is not the Sing Sung thing, it's the Noonien.
Yeah.
Because Noonien Soong is and Han Noonien Singh. It's like, what's with the Nooniens? Is that like a common name there? No. He was Singh's adopted father.
Yeah, it was.
Not related though.
Yeah, Dal-Rel,
But
a human augment
he's
hybrid, was
not
created
related.
as the handiwork of Eric Soong's proteges. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we kind of got, so yeah, like if Dal tries to join Starfleet, like they know he's an augment, so it's a matter of like, are they going to give this kid a break on this, or
Yeah.
what are they
Like,
going?
I
Because
would
they don't have
suck
parents to punish, like. And the
it would
geneticist
suck
is
if
probably
they
somewhere
did.
off the Federation so they can actually do their work.
Yeah. It wouldn't really be fair because like he actually beat the Kobayashi Maru
But
like without cheating.
yeah, it's yeah, and we don't know. I mean, we don't know how laws have changed since the Dominion War era. Like what the augment, like there could have been a change in the law, and we just don't know enough about it. Because this is well after
Although
Janeway came back, because she's a rear admiral. I think was it just an admiral,
yeah,
some
yeah,
description. I forget which one, but she's an admiral. So this is
Vice
after
Admiral,
she vice admiral. Okay, this is
Vice Admiral Janeway.
yeah. So this is long after she came back. This is well, maybe not long after, but this is at least after the Dominion War, after all the events of DS9. This is maybe a year or two, at least a year or two. I forget. I always forget the timeline of this thing, but it's after. So
If I remember correctly, it's like 88.
but yeah, it's a bit after that. So who knows what developments could have happened in law during that time. But it is kind of sad if you think about it, because all the rest of these characters, like absolutely every other character in this on this ship, every one of them, if they reached maturity, it would be possible for them to join Starfleet because they're not augmented.
Okay, so
But
it's about 10 years after Voyager.
10 years, yeah. I mean,
I
it's not impossible. Like Voyager, I think Voyager took longer. They came back after the Dominion War, so I think so. It was maybe a
oh,
year or two.
even less because Prodigy takes place in 2384.
Okay.
So, yeah. So 2384 and Voyager ended in
Came back.
It came back in 2378. So that's about 8 years. I mean, about 6 years difference.
Yeah. Okay, so this is 6 years post Endgame.
Yeah.
So, and it was probably another, maybe, I don't know how long the Dominion War had been over by then, maybe a year or two. I'd have to look that up. But suffice to say, we're looking at 7, 8 years maybe between Bashir's augment thing and the events of Prodigy. And so, yes, in 8
Well,
years.
even less than that, because I mean, even more than that, because Bashir was
He was
in
discovered
DS9,
during the Dominion War.
yeah,
And DS9 and I think DS9 and Voyager run concurrently
a little bit.
For a little bit. So,
yeah,
like,
DS9 was 2369 to 2374. I'm looking at a timeline right now.
okay. So it ended at, okay,
DS9 season 7 ended in DS9 season 4.
Okay.
So
and
there
Voyager
was
season 4. So yeah, okay, so
about 10 years between the end of DS9. And wasn't that episode like
it happened
halfway
during
through? Yeah.
it happened during the all that happened during the Dominion War. So it was in the later part of the series on top of that. So it may have been if it's 10 years from the end of DS9 to Prodigy, then it might have been 12 or so that were from the time that Bashir was discovered and all that happened. So we're looking at a little over a decade of since Bashir to Dow. And so I don't know if there was any legal action between those points, because it could have happened. The Dominion War was ending, so peace had kind of come back. They were still rebuilding everything, but these sorts of, with the Dominion Wars, sort of veil no longer kind of hanging over everything, these sorts of questions about augments might come back up for some reason. Maybe somebody points to Bashir and is like, hey, you shouldn't have done that. And like, well, we should do this. And it was okay because of this. And, everything, like they, and so those with things no longer being survive, now it's, okay, rebuild, okay, figure out, okay, well, some of the aftermath of the war, like, okay, well, you did this. That wasn't cool. Like, coming back to those sorts of decisions that are made in war, in the struggle, in survival, and just sort of some things that may not have been very Starfleet, but, like, they felt that particular captain felt it was right at the time, and maybe the Starfleet command said, well, yeah, normally, no, I would say this is really bad, but no, this is war. We'll let a little bit of it slide because this is war, and it's not the first time they've let something slide because of the war. But
war, what is it good for?
Getting augmented into Starfleet.
I can't believe we're still the augmented thing.
I know.
Well, it's a big thing. That's a huge aspect, and it has huge ramifications for Dow's future.
And honestly, it has a real strong allegory to the ableism in modern day, if you think about it. Like, because the augmentation and the eugenics itself has such a deep root in society as a whole, because of how prevalent racism and the use of eugenics in deep-seated racism, because as far back as the 1920s, I think, even before that in different forms, but even America was talking about eugenics before the Nazis. And then the Nazis co-opted it, and it's like, maybe not. We don't want to be like them.
Yeah. I mean, nobody wants to be like the Nazis.
But
Except neo-Nazi assholes, but
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a whole argument about, okay, we have these powers, we're gaining these scientific abilities.
And
Where's the
even
line?
and especially now that we actually can fix things, like we can adapt people, like, hey, this person is going to have a birth defect, we can fix that. But should we, like, certain things that are not going to be actually detrimental to them, like, and with the modern genetic adaptation of being able to choose, hey, what gender is my kid going to be? What hair color are they going to have?
Yeah,
And
I don't think we're quite at designer babies yet, but we're getting
not
closer
yet,
by the
but
day.
we're getting there.
And that
We're
line has
getting,
to be decided.
and that has a really strong ethical connotation, because where is that line? Like, yeah, I don't want my kid to have, Down syndrome or some debilitating illness, like what's that respiratory one that kids get where their like lungs start like scarring, you know, or muscular dystrophy or ALS or anything like that will cause them to not have a will cause them to have pain for their whole life.
Yeah.
That fixing that. But then okay, and hey, I want a boy or I want a girl. Okay, we could give you that. We can choose that. Hey, can I get him to have white skin and blonde hair and blue eyes? And then you get into neo-Nazi or
Yeah.
eugenics.
Well, and at least sex selection is a big mistake to let that go, to put that on the acceptable side of the line, because that's essentially what happened with China, and they're reaping because they had the one child policy, and culturally, some of the culture, and this isn't everybody, but it's a big
They wanted
swath of
they wanted boys more than girls, so
yeah,
they
because
would
they carry on the family.
kill the girl babies.
Yeah, they would have selective abortions, and then they would have their one kid, that they were restricted to having their one kid, and they would go, oh, we're gonna have a boy. Well, what happened there is you have way too many boys. There's more boys than girls in China because of that.
Yep.
And
There
so
actually was a Boston Legal episode about that, where this girl who is a second generation immigrant, like her parents were from China, and so when she came, she was like 16 and pregnant and wanted an abortion, and her mom refused, so she tried to sue her mom to get her the abortion, and at first they were it was Alan and Shirley were like, okay, sure, you seem articulate, you seem intelligent, you're not ready to have a child, we'll help you. But then the mom's like, you don't know what this really is about. And it's like, what is it about? And it turned out that the daughter was having a girl, and she wanted the abortion because of that deep rooted cultural instinct of, it's a girl, so I need to get rid of it.
Yeah.
it's not everybody, obviously, and whenever you start about culture, you don't want to throw a huge blanket over a whole group of people, but it is a thing that is more entrenched in some parts of China than others, but
Yeah,
it's a thing that did affect the male female balance in China, and it
yeah.
has led to a population where there are more men than women because of that. And so
Reverse harem.
I guess, but but yeah, and so you stack that on already they have a huge population crisis going on because they turned off they've stepped back the one child policy over the last maybe decade or two, and I think it's the last decade or so they've stepped it back. Oh, two child policy. Oh, three child policy, and now they're realizing, oh, we screwed up our demographics pretty hard with this, because also on top of that, now you've got generations where they only have they have no siblings, like
Hmm.
whole generations where most people don't have siblings, and so they're like, well, I only want one kid. Well, you
Hmm.
have this generation having one kid, and they don't even have to put the restriction on them anymore because they only want one kid. Oh, now they're only having one kid, so now this whole thing is declining, and they're now trying to flip it and encourage childbirth to try and not have their population completely collapse on them. And the actual number, the Chinese population is the actual numbers are the public numbers are, you know, something, we people don't necessarily trust. People who have, some demographers who have gone over this stuff are like, I don't think those numbers are right based on all the stuff that's going on and what I see from this and this and this. All these other indicators are saying those numbers are not right. And the numbers are bad, but like, no, the actual numbers are worse. But yeah, so like
Well,
that's a definite one you want to
yeah,
keep out of there.
if you look at it with having one child per couple, and then it's not all couples have children, that's a reverse.
It's negative growth.
Yeah, it's you're cutting the generation at least in half each. I mean, you're cutting the population in half each generation.
And yeah, they're so yeah.
So
Now
they
they're
could have, with a couple billion, like, if I remember correctly, for a while China was half the population of the world,
well
and
they
you cut that down significantly each generation.
yeah, they were worried about they were gonna their population was gonna outgrow their means to feed it. And so like, oh, we gotta control population now. And so they did the one child policy. And it was too effective. And all the other bad things with it, but from a just messing with people's free will and all this stuff, forced abortions, all that stuff, sterilization, all that was horrible. But even from the perspective of somebody trying to control population numbers, it was too effective at what it was planned to do. And now they're in a vicious cycle of, oh, I only want one kid. No, you must have many kids. I only want one kid. Okay. And so, yeah. So now they're like,
And it's for people like me, I don't want any kids.
but yeah. And so not only do you have people like you who naturally don't want to, but now you have people who would, if they were if they hadn't done this one child policy, maybe generationally they would have had more kids over the years, and this generation would want more than one kid. The ones that do want kids would want more than one kid, or want more kids than they do have, and so now they're trying to get, hey, have kids, more kids, more kids, more kids, and so they're just having all sorts of problems, and they can't fix it with immigration because they don't like immigration. China doesn't do immigration, and
Yeah.
so or doesn't do it very much. They do immigration, but just not very much, and it's very, yeah. And so, yeah, there's all sorts of problems going on with China. So, yeah, that whole, adding gender to that, yeah, that can cause a whole population just,
The collapse.
especially, if you try and put that in there, you're just like, oh, obviously it'll be expensive, so not everybody would be able to do it, but.
And that's another thing that when when it does come to, making designer babies, only the rich can afford it, which will mean that the rich people will give them an extra edge. Like, not only are you born to a family that has billions of dollars, but guess what? You're also stronger and faster and smarter than everybody because we designed you to be that way. And that is where the eugenics war started.
And so, but yeah. So so I mean, to be fair, like, this episode, having him be an augment is like, we've talked almost exclusively these 40 minutes about it. I've said a few lines about the Tal Shiar and who are these kids that are beating up Tal Shiar? But
a slime god, because let's face it, Murph is badass.
But yeah, and so
Slime god and an augment.
Yeah, so we have okay. So the main features of this are, hey, Dal's an augment. Okay, we also got the, if it's too good to be true, it probably is, and maybe you shouldn't mess around with that sort of thing like you do. And so we got through that. Okay, then we got the bombshell at the end of the episode with. Is that with the at the end of the episode with the with her activating the robot, and it's just,
Oh yeah.
and she's got the disc on the back of her neck that lets her transform. And was that supposed, was that supposed, who is that supposed to be precisely? I mean, we've got an idea, but like, what does that mean? What does this mean, like, for her to be there? It's like, that's like, we'll have to get that. That's gonna come in and be filled out, I imagine, throughout the rest of the season. But we'll come back to that. But yeah, Dal.
That's a big one. That's gonna definitely pay out through the season.
Yeah, but for right now, I think we've basically, one of the big character moments that, like, Dal was looking, who am I? What? Nobody can identify me. Well, the reason they can't identify you is because you're everything. So you look like everything, so you don't look like anything in particular. And so that's why, and so we've kind of resolved, like, we don't know exactly who built him. Like, maybe they'll find that, one of Sung's proteges will come forward and, he created you. It's like, that may happen, but for now, he at least knows what he is.
Yeah.
A bit of a grab bag. Started with probably human, and then just sort of stacked stuff on top of that until they got him.
It did say that the base was human.
Yeah.
Like a human base.
Probably. So
yeah.
There's some wiggle room there, but I would say, yeah, probably. Started with a human and then just started stacking stuff on top of that.
I mean, Sung was human, and the augments were all human-based. So,
yeah,
like,
either they started as humans, or and then you had the Klingon augments, which that went the other way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically, it wasn't the forehead ridges thing, like, make wasn't the augmentation making them look more human anyway?
Yeah, because they.
Because it was to stop a virus or something,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it made them look more human until they found a cure or something. So that's why
Yeah.
they have the forehead ridges in the future episodes and in the past episodes.
Yeah, it was this one colony that got infected with this
And
augment
I
virus,
just
and then they had
realized
this
that's
stable.
why Discovery looked so weird to me because, I mean, besides the fact that their heads and stuff, but it was supposed to be post Enterprise, pre TOS, but they still had the ridges.
Yeah, some of them
They were
are.
like TOS.
Yeah, in that era, like in the era between Enterprise and some of the TOS movies, like, well, it looks like over time they may have figured a way to sort of reverse that bit and make it to where, like, maybe.
Yep.
And so at that point, like, at some point, they fixed the problem that was making them look more human.
Yeah, but
But
this is pre TOS. This is 10 years before the original series takes place.
but
Actually, more than 10 years before the original series takes place, like 12 to 15 years before the original series takes place. Because Strange New Worlds, which takes place after season 2 of Discovery, takes place 10 years before TOS.
But yeah.
So
there should be both. There should be both at that time period.
yeah.
And then over
But
time,
all of them have really over accentuated forehead ridges. Like, really accentuated.
Yeah.
I'm not talking the sexy TNG forehead ridges. I'm talking like
it was a botched job.
I'm talking Abrams verse forehead ridges.
Yeah.
And
it was a botched job. They had smooth foreheads, but they're like, okay, well, we have to do reconstruction on them and make them extra. And they were like, okay, well, we'll do this, but they're not very good at it yet, so it's sort of.
It was plastic surgery. That's what it was. It was like it was like those freaky ladies who get the excessive plastic surgery, and they have like the giant lips and the weird cartoonish faces and the boobs that they can't even move their arms. It was one of those.
They overcompensated for the smoothness. It's like, oh, well, no, or they're just not. They weren't very good at it yet, and so like, okay, well, we'll give them the massive ones. And so, but eventually, the smooth forehead may have been a recessive trait, and just like over several generations, since it was only just like one colony that
but at the same time, then this is before TOS. Why would they have the smooth foreheads in TOS? You know, if they've already
well, I think they figured out. I think it. Well, okay, I think
unless all the Klingons that TOS engages with are all from the same house or something.
It's very possible that like a lot of them, like maybe the smooth forehead thing is a thing that, you know, they tend to clump together, and so because they end up getting bullied by the ones with the normal ridges, and so they kind of stick together, and so but over the years, you know, a smooth forehead one gets in with a regular forehead one, and it's the regular forehead one is dominant, and so now their kids all look like regular Klingons, and so over the years it just sort of bred out of the population. Like some recessive traits are floating around, and maybe occasionally you get somebody with a smooth forehead, but they're super rare nowadays because it's been enough generations that it's sort of bred down to nothing.
That would be really hilarious to at some point in one of the contemporary TNGs, besides Trials and Tribulations, but I mean, in the 24th century, you see a random Klingon with like the smooth forehead, and you're like,
It's
what are you?
recessive. It pops up now and again.
Yeah, I'm a Klingon. You pata. Like,
Yeah.
but you don't look like a Klingon. Shut up.
Well, and they probably have perfected the. They would have early on in their life. They would have fixed their heads so that they looked right. Like if they may have been born smooth, but even if they're born smooth, they would have done something to fix there. Because we're not talking about the Federation. Like, the Klingons aren't very good at genetic manipulation. Seemingly. From, like, well, it depends on which one you... What episode you're looking at. Sometimes they're decent, sometimes they're not. But, like, they did a genetic manipulation to make sure that, you know, when they find somebody with both genes, they genetically edit them so that they don't have those genes, and so they have normal Klingon forehead genes, and they look like normal Klingons. And then, just over time,
would that mean that the smooth foreheaded Klingons are basically the Klingon equivalent of an anti-vaxxer? Like, an anti-vaxxer hippie, it's like, my parents didn't believe in augmentation, so now I have a smooth forehead.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it would be somebody who was like, yeah, I'm not going to mess with my kids' genetics because, you know, they will be who they are, you know, and, but your child will have smooth head. Yes, and they can decide later if they want to have it cosmetically altered. But that will be their choice, not mine. And so, like, that may be it. You know, there's no telling. Because Klingons may not hold the same genetic engineering thing, you know.
I still would love to see a smooth foreheaded Klingon in, like, in like Picard or in like Lower Decks or something.
It happens. Yes, I have a smooth forehead. Yes, I'm a Klingon. It happens. It's a thing. Leave it alone. That's as much as
we don't talk about.
We don't talk about it. I have a smooth. Yes, I am a Klingon. Yes, I have a smooth forehead. No, I don't want to talk about it. No, I'm not going to talk about it. So,
like in Trials and Tribulations, it's like we don't talk about it.
Yeah, the DS9 visit to it. Yeah, it's like, yeah, we don't talk about it. But yeah, like it would be that sort of situation where we're like, oh yeah, no, I'm not going to talk about it. Yes, I am a Klingon. Yes, I have a smooth forehead. No, I'm not going to talk about it. So if you want to look it up, you want to look into the historical tapes, see if the Klingon Empire will even tell you. But no, the answer is no. I'm not going to tell you anything. And if you bring it up, I'm going to kick your ass. Like, I can imagine that being the Klingon response. It's like, yes, I have a smooth forehead. Yes, I'm a Klingon. Yes, if you bring it up, I will kick your ass. Any questions? No? Okay, no. Then. Let's go. Yeah. I think we've hit just about everything, plus like a whole hour of, almost a whole hour. It's been almost
we devolved back into eugenics somehow.
But yeah, it's this whole
this whole episode was basically involved eugenics, like the augmentation process.
Yeah, genetic engineering. Now this
basically
has major implications for the main character of this story.
Yeah,
like
this entire episode was about genetic manipulation and eugenics. So I mean,
yeah, And it's gonna keep
Well,
coming back because we still got that little disc that was on the back of Dow was also on our visitor,
yep.
and so but yeah, so this is going to come up probably at some. This might come up at some point. Like we don't know how that's maybe not, depends. But yeah, it's
What kind of augmentation did she have? Dun dun dun.
but anyway, I'd like to cut it off before an hour comes. Get to an hour.
Yeah.
Um,
Enjoy that episode, everybody.
But anything else?
Nope. Got nothing.
Madrock has just been sitting here the whole time listening to us rant about eugenics.
Pretty much.
Yeah, because
Star Trek.
he has none of the background, hard background of watching.
It's just like, yeah, genetics, cool.
Yeah, we're speaking because we have this vast Star Trek knowledge, and we're just talking absolute gibberish to somebody who's not seen all these shows.
And it's not just that, but like we're talking about the moral quandaries of genetics from a contemporary standpoint, like not just in Star Trek, but in everyday life. And Madrock's just like,
what?
That's kind of cool.
This is getting a little deep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna hold back and let you two just go off. But yeah, it was a way of we really got deep on this one. That's why it's almost an hour long. Okay, well, if nobody has anything else,
really deep concept. Like it's a really, deep and important concept to deconstruct. So
not only within the series, but without the series.
Yeah, within the realm of fiction and in real life. But I mean, that's the point, because Star Trek is all about allegory and the allegorical concept of, they address things in a way that gets you talking about the real life issues as well. So.
Yeah.
All right, well, I will stop the recording right there.